Okay, welcome to Creative Outdoors. My name's Stuart and we're going to talk you through the kit that you may need for a canoe expedition. In this case, what you can see in front of you is kit for a 4-day expedition, which sort of equates to a DV gold expedition. What I've tried to do is put kit down that is not necessarily high tech or lightweight, so it gives you a better idea of how to pack the kit that you may have. I'm going to talk you through all the bits and pieces you see laid out in front of you, and then we will go through actually packing it into the barrels and then applying that and adding that into the canoe itself. So to give you an idea of what we're looking at in the picture that you can see in front of you, anything to the left hand side of your picture, left hand side of this paddle here, so this area here is items that you will be either wearing during your paddling days or that you want to refer to or may want to refer to during that time. So we have our paddling equipment, extra layers if we want to put those on if the weather's poor, if you're feeling cold. We have a first aid kit. Hopefully we don't want to use that, but we need to have it accessible. A bag that is full of hats, sun hat, woolly warm hat. We've got notepad, pencil, we've got sunglasses, we've got water, we've got warm a drink of some sort, and we've got our food in there as well for our lunchtime. And then also separately we've got our reference material, our maps, compass and route card. Now on the other side of the paddle we have items that we want to access during the rest of the time, possibly in the evenings, and spare equipment. So we have our phone, possible camera there, we have a charger, we've got spare clothes for the rest of the duration of the days, we have warm clothes and waterproof clothes there, and boots that we can get into during our camping phase. And of course washing items there, my wash kit and my towel. We've got our waterproof and watertight container here that we can put all our equipment in. We have our sleeping system, so we've got our sleeping bag, roll mat, tent here, and right down the front we have our food and cooking items. So let's go on to look at this in a little bit more detail. So first of all we have the top of this section here, which is our paddling equipment. You'll be issued a helmet, okay, or if you've got your own, please bring it, and a buoyancy aid. Buoyancy aid must be worn at all times when you are close to the water, getting on or getting off the water, and your helmet will be worn at points where the water might mean that you could fall in, okay. And those things will be identified to you in your training, and they will likely be things like entering a rapid section on the water. We've got a wetsuit here and a cag or windproof cag. The wetsuit there is designed to keep you warm if you go in, so it traps a layer of water in between your skin and the material here, which is great. It isn't necessarily the most comfortable equipment to paddle in for many days, right? So there are a number of things you can do. The wetsuits can come in long johns set up, so they don't have arms to them, which helps with chafing under the armpits, you know, with that constant movement of paddling. But also there are a number of different systems that we'll talk about in another video. But we've got a cag here, which is great for keeping you nice and warm on a windy day, especially if you've actually been in the water. Now underneath that, it's always suggested that you wear something, so some swimming trunks or some sort of swimsuit, and have a base layer, some sort of wicking material t-shirt that you can wear underneath the wetsuit, but over the top, so especially on a really sunny day you can drop that top half and remain nice and cool. Now here I've got waterproof trousers and a warm top, a thin warm top. That's all there to keep you a little bit warmer on those miserable days and just help you with a little bit of morale, and to and of course keep you nice and safe and warm. And then here we've got wetsuit boots And the important thing to think about on these wetsuit boots is that they've got a really hard wearing sole to them, not just the wetsuit socks, and also some waterproof socks here. Now wetsuit boots are great, but you could also just use an old pair of trainers if you so wish, and that's where the wetsuit, the waterproof socks come in so nicely. They are just better than either wearing no socks at all on a long journey, or you know, your normal types of socks. These waterproof socks, if you're just dipping your toes in the water, they'll keep your feet nice and dry for a while at least. Okay, of course, if you get over the top of them, they'll get wet. In the first aid kit, it's really your first aid kit for you. Okay, so think about all the things that you might need. You might want some blister plasters, little plasters to keep cuts covered whilst you're in the water. I've also got in there any sort of medication that I need to bring with me, sun cream, midge repellent, and hand sanitizer, so I can clean my hands just before we eat meals if we need to. This is my bag that I'm going to keep accessible throughout. I've got a warm drink in here. It could be whatever you want. It's more of a morale thing, and to keep you get your temperature back up. If you've gone in and you're starting to feel cold, so it could be tea, it could be coffee, it could be hot squash, it could be hot chocolate, whatever your choice is. And then we've got a water bottle, and in this case I've got some squash in there. Notepad and pen, always useful, especially in an emergency, but anything that you want to write down. And if you're on this on a DFE expedition, you might need to be making notes for your aim as you go along. And then a variety of hats. Sun hat, excellent. You could wear it even if you wanted to underneath your helmet to help with any heavy rainfall, keeps it off your face. Okay, but also the sun as well. Really important, especially when you're on the water, because it just magnifies that sun there. Sunglasses for that exact same reason, and a warm hat to put on if it's just that horrible edge of cold and wind and rain. Just keeps you nice and warm, boosts your morale for that little bit extra just before you get to the campsite. And then of course you have your route card. Really important in terms of referencing where you're going. It helps you remember your day's route just at a look of the sheet. All right, so make sure the right one is accessible, and as you can see, it's in a waterproof container. Now that could be a map case in this case, but it could also be a laminated sheet, so it's nice and it's going to stay dry, but also it's nice and easy to access. And then we've got your map. 1 to 50,000, 1 to 25,000, that's fine. Just make sure you have the right maps for the day, and that you don't have to take them out during your day, because you're going to have wet hands, and of course if it's raining, everything's going to start to go to mush. So make sure you prep it in the dry beforehand, and then your compass is there just as a backup as you're going down river. Okay, so talking you through the section of spare clothing and clothing that you want to use whilst you are on the campsite. So you're not paddling at this point, you're off the water. So working down from the top of the screen down, then we've got our phone and portable charging device here, nice and fully charged, ready to go. Who knows when you can get a charge again, especially on a gold expedition with wild campsites. I've got a plastic bag here, or a bin bag, for any wet clothes that you need to segregate from the rest. Don't put wet clothes with dry clothes, it's just going to end in tears at the end of the day. We've got our spare set of clothing that we want to then wear underneath the wetsuit or your paddling equipment. We haven't got a set for each day, we're just swapping over, so we're going to use one set, we're going to try and dry out the next set whilst we're wearing the others, and we keep leapfrogging, swapping them over as we go. Otherwise we'll just bring far too much equipment. We've got spare or trousers for the evening, underwear and pairs of socks, and again we're not going to be wearing them for that long, and we want to be using those on a rotation basis, and to be quite frank, use those as your pyjamas, your sleeping wear as well. Nothing wrong with that. We have our wicking base layers or wicking tops here, and together with the trousers, please make sure that there isn't any cotton. It's a wicking quick drying layer. The cotton will get wet and it won't dry. Okay, so no sort of tracky bottoms or jeans or just your normal sort of fashion t-shirts. Something with a quick drying element to it, sportswear, is absolutely ideal for what we want, and of course it will be a little bit more lightweight and a little smaller to pack away. We've got boots, and it's boots rather than shoes or flip-flops and things for moving around the campsite. Especially in wild campsites, you just don't know what's underfoot. So a nice pair of boots which will cover most bases, which in terms of poor weather and good weather is great. And very importantly, there's a bag under there so that it's segregated from the rest. So we're not going to get wet clothes and muddy boots with mixed in with all our nice new stuff that we're looking forward to putting on dry at the end of a wet day's paddling. Again, with that sort of line of thinking, we've got some gloves, not to wear on the water, but to put on during the time that you're off the water, just to keep your hands nice and warm. Warm jacket and a waterproof jacket there, again for those times off the water, cold evenings, wet mornings, whilst you're setting up tents and packing them away again. Finishing off then with our washing kit, we've got a very small and a sort of a normal thin travel towel and wash kit in there, toothbrush, toothpaste and all the important bits. So we're going to move on to our sleeping system now. Sleeping system, which is everything to do with our sleeping, yeah, other than our the clothes that we wear in bed. So what we have is our sleeping bag. Make sure it's a really good sleeping bag, please. Really a 3-season sleeping bag is ideal, but even in the summer, certainly in the UK, the temperature does drop in the evenings and in the middle of the night. So you want to be comfortable, and you want to know that when you get into bed, you're going to stay warm, you're going to have a comfortable night's sleep. A roll mat of some sort is a really important bit of kit, because what it does is it makes sure that, one, you don't get wet as you're lying on the ground, because some of the tent ground sheets will start to draw in moisture as you lie there. It stops sweat building up, but also it makes sure that you are really nice and warm, and there's an insulated layer between you and the ground. That's where a lot of heat is drawn from your body. A head torch and extra batteries for when you are needing to move around at the night and work around in your tent itself. We've got separate large dry bags for these items here, so that they are completely separate from everything else, and your sleeping system stays dry. And we have our tent here. Now, of course, mostly your canoe as a pair will have a tent between, so you can split this up into 2 different bags. But if you are attending as an individual on one of our open expeditions, well, you might want to be using your own tent and staying by yourself. So we will be packing 1 full tent away. Just bear in mind you could probably share that amongst the pair of you in your team. Okay, and finally we're on to our food. Now, food for what you can see in front of you here is just a reminder, it's for 4 days out on your expedition. Breakfasts, lunches on the go, and an evening meal for each night. A few snacks on the way, and of course all the material that you need, the kit that you need to cook. So we have our cooking materials here. We have a little gas cooker here that attaches to the gas supply, and we've got some a pot and pan where everything can go in. Now bear in mind though that 1 pan set, if you're going for a pan set, you don't have to, but you're going for a pan set, again, could be split in between the 2 people in your crew, so you can spread that equipment around. Cutlery, These are sporks, so they're sort of a spoon at one end and a fork and a knife at the other. I've got a couple so that I can eat with one. I can use one for actually sort of cooking, stirring and preparing. I've got some lighters to light our stove, and my sort of drinks bag here, which has got, for me, it's got a cup of soups, it's got hot chocolate, and it's got tea bags. Here is my breakfast. Okay, so we've got a mixture of, sort of Cocoa Pops, chocolate sort of Rice Krispies style things, and some porridge. We've got lunch, which is wraps, cheese and meats. I've got my little area of snacks along the way, some sweets and some biscuits, digestive style biscuits there. I've got some extra bits here that can either be for lunchtime or for my evening meal, and then I've got some pastas for my 4 days. Now, I like pasta, so that's great, but just bear in mind you probably want to have a bit of a variation, and the way that I've done it is to change the toppings that we're going to have on our pasta each night, but that's why you need to plan your menu. And don't forget that you might just get bored of something. Why not think about spicing up a little bit? So the things I've got pesto, I've got tuna, I've got Marmite, I've got the cheese that I can have on my pasta there. So there's actually quite a few options, all pasta based admittedly, but a few options there. If you notice, they're all in different bags. I've taken them out of the extra packaging that they may have come with, and I've broken them down, and things like the pasta here are in portions, a daily portion for me. And I've brought my food along rather than necessarily a whole bunch of stuff for everyone. This is my stuff, my food for the trip. If you're coming as a group, then of course you can think about the menu, and you can plan ahead and divvy up all the stuff that you're bringing. If you're coming along as an individual on an open expedition, well, just bring food for yourself and we can deal with everything else from there. Not a huge amount of packaging to be thrown away, which is important, but I have got a bin bag there to collect any of the rubbish, because we have to take that out with us. Okay, so I've talked through some of the equipment that you can see here. Now the plan is to pack it away and fit it into the bags and the containers that we're going to put into our canoe. We've got a range of dry bags, you can see them all placed out, and basically what we want to do is to keep everything compartmentalised, little bags within our big bag, so that we can access different things at different times, and not everything is going to get wet all at the same time. Double bag things, okay, so if we've got an outer container, then we've got other separate dry bags inside, so that if the worst comes to the worst and you do capsize, okay, then it's very unlikely that things will get absolutely soaking wet. So here we go, packing it away, and we'll see you once everything is in its bags. Okay, so we're just going to look at packing one of these dry bags. This one here is a big one. It's a double XL Carrymore dry bag. Just a large inner for a rucksack, but perfect for something like a sleeping bag. Now what we've got to think about is trying to fill the space as efficiently as possible in any of the bags that we're packing. So it could be a rucksack, but in this case our barrels. And by doing that we need to actually remove them from possibly, you know, the sleeping bag stuff sack, because that becomes a very cylindrical shape that has lots and lots of space around it unless you pack properly. And to be honest with you, the best thing to do is just to stuff things. Alright, so here all I'm going to do is stuff it into this stuff sack. Best thing to do is get the end, get your feet end first, and then as you're stuffing it you're actually expelling the air out of the top, which is going to help with your packing. Alright, so if we did that up now, that's going to be quite a large area, so it takes up most of our barrel. So what we want to do is squash that down, squeeze it and compress it as tightly as possible. So give it a shake in the bag, give it a push down, squeeze out as much air as possible. Do it again. And then as you've done that the last time, as you pull up, you're holding onto the top of the dry bag. And at this point all we want to do is roll down a minimum of 3 times to ensure that's steel. Obviously as you're doing it, make sure you've got the clips ready. Okay, and then once you're ready to finish off after your minimum 3 rolls down at the top, do that, clip it up. That's going to keep it tight, sealed, and for the most part airtight as well, so it's going to keep it in this smaller size rather than the big size that we started off with. The 3 rolls at the top means that you've actually got to think about that kit again and decide on the type of bag that you want. If it's too bulging and you can only get 1 or 2 rolls, it's not going to be watertight. Right, so change that bag up to a larger size and allow you some more roll top to help with keeping it as waterproof as possible. So here we have it, all the kit that we need packed up into dry bags here, and the only bits that are left out now are the bits that we need to access or we're wearing during our paddling day. Things that we've got out here are a number of different types of dry bag. Thinner material dry bags, they're brilliant, they're great, but they are a little bit less hard wearing. So if you are thinking about having a dry bag that is going to be separate or free in the boat, we'll think about going for something that's got a more hard wearing outer, which is something like this, which is a waxier finish. Otherwise the more lightweight versions are absolutely fine, they're brilliant. They come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, absolutely enormous ones all the way down to really tiny individual things. Getting a mixture of sizes is really important, and it's really down to having a think about what you're going to put in what bag so that it's easy to access. So you've got all your kit in your bags, in your dry bags, and you've compartmentalised everything so that you know hopefully what's in each bag. Don't forget, if you've got lots of bags that look very similar or even the same, make sure you name them. Put a tag on them, write on them so that you know what's in what. You've then got to put them into your barrels. Okay, this is one of the barrels that you can use with us. They're about 70 litres and similar to a small expedition rucksack if you've been walking before. That's all very well, but you won't necessarily fit absolutely everything in there. Okay, so we're going to get a baby one of these as well. And both of those together can form your kit for your 4-day expedition. Okay, bearing in mind if you're going to do something less than a 4-day expedition, then you will need a little less kit, therefore less of the barrels. Now this barrel here has got markings on it so you know which is which when you've got lots of the same looking barrels all over the place. You've got tethers that attach it to the canoe itself, and then you've also got this clamp. Okay, this clamp's important because it is squeezing the top down to create that watertight seal. And it's this clamp here. You open that up, lift the collar off, okay, lift the top off, there you got an open barrel ready to fill. Okay, same goes for the little one here. So how do we want to fill these barrels? Well, first of all, you've got to think about how you want to access things. So if the last thing that you want to access is your sleeping bag, which it probably is going to be in your day, that is the first thing that goes in. Okay, that then leaves the top section here as the bits that you want to maybe access throughout the day. Hopefully you won't, but perhaps getting spare clothing or extra food out, bearing in mind your lunch food is going to be in the bag that is going to be separate in the boat with you. That's there at the top, so you don't have to rummage in, take a whole load of bags and equipment out. Especially think about when it's poor weather and it's raining, you're just going to fill this barrel up with water. It's just going to collect it. So let's have a think about it. So in my case, the first thing that's going to go in is our sleeping bag. Okay, now let's squeeze that in, and then don't forget, once that's in the barrel, just getting the air out, there we go. Once that's in the barrel, we want to be squeezing as much air out as possible and filling as much of the space. We don't want any missing gaps and things that we can't fit equipment in. Now I've got a little bit of a space around the side, so I'm going to use that to pack my roll mat into. Squeezing that down, finding all that empty space to fill. And now I'm going to find some more small stuff to fit around the edges. So I have my gloves in there. Don't want to access them until we're back on campsite really. I've got my bags for wet kit. I've got my phone and my charger. Don't really want to be having this out unless there's a real emergency. So pop that on. Moving on then, I have some spare clothes in here. I want to get that in, and just don't forget there's still going to be some air in these bags, alright? So if we need to, we can undo, we can play around with the actual stuff in the bag itself to squeeze out as much air as possible, and then redo the bag. Don't forget a minimum of 3 turns. Okay, now so thinking about not overdoing it in terms of filling this barrel, I'm going to see if I can fit my food into this as well, but maybe it won't work. Let's see. Squeezing the air out as we go. Not being light-hearted with it. Really push down hard, just like you were stuffing the stuff sack. Actually stuff the barrel as well. Well, that's good. I'm going to place the top on it now. That's alright. When we're looking at it, what we don't want to see is if you packed it too much, as soon as you put that top on, it'll start lifting up again. We don't want that, because no matter how much that seal is on, it's going to be spreading out. Okay, so let's get this clamp on. The way we want to do that is to get as much on as possible and then slide the last bit over, making sure the bottom rim is on the bottom blue part and the top part of the rim here is on the black part there, and then hold it nice and tight. I tend to sort of grip it with my knees as well, pushing down with my left hand, and then lock it in tight. Okay, so that's one done. Let's move on to our little one now. We've got a few more things to fit in. In this case, by the looks of it, I've got some bits of awkward shaped stuff and again some extra clothing in here. So let's see if we can get that in. Squeeze the air out from underneath. Break the seal. There we go. Okay, I reckon I can squeeze that out to the sides. I'm going to open this up and Get those out. Okay, now that's my boots. Okay, now this is where you might have to be a bit more adaptable to the space. I'm going to change around how these boots are sitting in the bag, because I reckon I can fit the toes in that gap there. Let's try that out, see what happens, and then might have a little bit more space. Okay, not too bad. Squeezing the air out, holding it nice and tight. Okay. So the only things I've got left to pack really are my tent. Now, something to bear in mind with the tent is I've got the full tent. Don't forget that we actually want to be spreading that out, and if we were sharing that in between the two people in the team, I reckon I could fit my half into either of the two barrels here, but I won't be able to fit it as a one. So if you're turning up as an individual and you want to stay in your own tent, well, that's fine. You've just got to bear in mind that that needs to be separately stored as a dry bag by itself. I can store that in the boat fine, that's not a problem, but it won't go into any of these as packed at the moment. I do though have my first aid kit, and I want that at the top really, don't I? So let's get that in, just out of the way. It's got a bit of air in, so I'm just going to take that out, squeeze that in to okay, so again, nothing's coming out over the top, so that lid should be okay to be put on top. It's not running up. Remember, feed that clamp around the collar. Try and get the rim running around the bottom on that blue part, and rim running around the top on the black part, gripping it together and locking it into place. So what have we got left? We have our two barrels, we have our tent, I've got my bag there that is full of stuff that I want throughout the day, and I've got my map and compass and my route card and the stuff I'm going to be wearing on the water, ready to rock and roll. So we've packed, it's all ready to go. We've just got to pack it and fix it into the boat to make sure it doesn't come out if we do capsize. Now our bowman, our other crew member, has already packed theirs in, so us working in the stern, we're going to pack ours in towards closer to us, so that we have easier access to it. So the way that we're going to do this, we're going to utilize these tethers, okay, or leashes that are attached to the loops on the carrying handles on the barrels themselves, and we are going to tie them onto, to be honest with you, anything, but we're going to tie them onto the lacing, okay, that is around here, okay, these bits, and also anything on the thwarts. To be quite frank, anywhere is fine as long as it's tied on. So I'm going to start with the big one. Let's keep it upright for starters. And then I'm going to find the closest point to tether, and we're going to do a round turn of 2 half hitches on that one. You can see that on another video if you need a refresher on that. And then I'm going to just do up everything. You can push these flat and clip them in, and then I'm going to lay it down. so. Now I'm not going to get the little one in. I can get the little one in front of my feet there, but looking at the space and how we can use it efficiently, I can get my tent in there like so, and attach that round if needs be, and then my quick access bag I can do the same to here. I'm using as much space as possible, and then finally the other tether for the small barrel. Go in here, and let's find a nice space for that. There we go, into the leash itself. And the only thing left, of course, is our maps and compasses. Now, we want that anywhere that is accessible, but obviously don't forget that we don't want it to disappear off. So we can attach it to wherever you feel is best, or we can hide that underneath an elastic strap there to make sure it doesn't disappear off. Now these leashes are really useful because we've got a lot of heavy equipment in this boat now, and what may happen is we capsize. Now we could attach these barrels in nice and tight so they don't move about, which is fine, but then if you capsize the boat, you are talking about a lot of weight to tip over and get the water out. Now it could also form a good area to displace water, okay, if it's fixed in place, but you've got to weigh out the pros and cons. In this case, it's going to be a very heavy boat. So what happens when the boat does turn over is these barrels come loose, but don't forget they're still attached to the boat. All of these barrels can come out. You can tip the boat over, get the water out, perform the rescue that you need to do, and then once you've cleared the boat of water, made sure everything's back in place, you can then either just pick them up and pull them in, or grab hold of the tether whilst you're in the boat, pull the barrels in and place them back where you need them. So we've talked about a lot of individual kit, stuff that you want to bring on your expedition. It's your choice. You can look at the kit list we provide and make your decision based on your experience and the kit that you own and the kit that you want to get to help you feel as comfortable as possible on your expedition. But there are also some bits that you need to be aware of that may be issued to you depending on the type of expedition you're on, to help out the group. So there'll be a number of these things across your group. That's your boat, your team, your 2 people in your boat, but also the larger group of boats that are on your expedition. First thing here is a bailer. It can be attached, should be attached to the lacing on your boat, just like the rest of your kit, so nothing disappears, everything's attached and tied down, and that is a really good way of scooping up any water that's inside the boat and getting rid of it. Something else you could see is a bothy bag or a survival shelter. It's not that plastic one. This is basically like effectively like a dome parachute type affair that you put over to make a makeshift tent. It hasn't got any poles. It's just held up by the people inside it. You can sit underneath it. It creates a great warm environment out of the elements to do whatever you need to do. Great for a lunch stop, but also really important in an emergency. This is floating line. By means it's a rope that floats in the water. If you put something like a climbing rope in the water, it falls to the bottom and sinks, and of course it could get snagged on things. So it's really important to use floating line in a water environment. And what you will find is the boats, the canoes, will have 2 of these lines attached, one to the bow, one to the stern, front and back, and they are called painters, and they're the bits that you use to tie the boat to the bank, tie boats to boats when you're rafting up and making sailing rigs for downwind sailing. But remember, try not to do too many knots. We cover that in another video. you'll have one of these attached to the stern of each of the canoes, so you'll have a number of those, one per boat, depending on how big your expedition is. It is a throw line. It's attached with a carabiner, okay, and in there you've got a length of rope. In this case it's 18 meters in this one here, and that rope there, and it's there to help you in an emergency, picking someone out of the water if you're on the bank, and it can also be used for a number of different things whilst you're in the camp as well. But that needs to be stowed and ready to go at all times, and we cover that in training and how to throw it. Group water. You know, we've got a 1 litre water bottle in your individual kit, but especially if you're going for overnight camping in a wild environment, you need more than just that for your water. So we need to have some extra barrels, extra bottles, bladders, whatever that might be, so that you can fill up and be prepared and be ready for those wild campsites. And then finally, in this box here is a maintenance kit that you'll have for the boats. I'll just show you the kinds of things that you'll have. First of all, in most environments, if you're using ropes, we have knives to help with that. These are sort of safety knives, so they don't have a point to them there, but they can cut on the hook. That's the sharp point there. Gaffer tape solves a number of problems, doesn't it? Okay, gaffering something up, it can bind things together, it can solve some problems where there's holes or leaks, very useful. Cable ties, again, great for tying bits on. If seats break, if thwarts break, you can use that to lash onto if you haven't got any more rope. You've got whistles for attracting attention. You have glow sticks for exactly that, for marking your position if in the dark and somebody needs to find you. And these bits here are sort of it's a builder's putty where you can once you've popped it out of the packet, you can mould it, mixing the two layers together, and that can form a really quick seal into a hole, just to get you down to the bank, down to the river where we might be, and we can then activate a plan of action for fixing the boat in a better way.